From TMP to TTNG, for sure the cure and those tired meme jeans. Hella Kinsella and the promise ring. Sunny day, real estate and rights this spring. Prince Twinkle daddies help keep the dream alive. I constantly thank God for Algernon and Remo Christie front drive. Mineral, snowing, high tide hotelier and more. Rio Limo only consists of the DC emotive hardcore. But you gotta admit, Kyle and Ellie really on that emo bullshit. You gotta admit that Kyle and Ellie really on that emo bullshit. Have you heard the tired and disavowed lonely word? Have you heard the disavowed and lonely word? Have you heard the lonely disavowed word? Have you heard the tired and lonely disavowed word?
I think it's time to start.
Okay, we'll start right now. What's poppin', everyone? It's episode 46 of the E Word. A random episode. We're throwing this in here because the list just came out like about a month ago. About a month ago when this will come out. This is going to be the episode that we tackle the 100 greatest emo songs of all time list that appeared on Vulture. Written by Ian Cohen, David Anthony, Nina Corcoran, Emma Garland, and Brad Nelson. I am Kyle, recording here in Madison, Wisconsin, and I am joined by Ellie over there in Austin, Texas.
This is going to be great because we're homies with 3 out of 5 of these people. So we get to just kind of like rip into them.
And we are joined by 2 other guests. We have invited Collins, a repeat guest. Collins, what's up?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you play in the band Closure.
Yes, that's correct.
And what episode were you on again?
We've had Collins on once or twice?
Once so far. It was me and Robert and Ben. Actually, I think Ben was there as well.
Yeah.
And we also have Seth, who has not been on the podcast. Seth, you are the owner and operator of Repeater Records.
Yeah, there's 2 of us. My friend Chris Berry and I run Repeater Records, and we reissue punk and hardcore.
Yeah, and the thing that ended up having us connect with each other is you're doing the reissue of that You and I discography, right?
Yes.
And which is going to include the Curtain Falls, which was not included on the previous You and I discography.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
The Curtain Falls is the main thing that sets this one apart from that other collection.
I honestly am just really happy that Repeater, and there was another label a while back that was kind of doing this, but I think they maybe have slowed down a little bit, but Archivist, just kind of reintroducing a lot of old out-of-print Screamo stuff to the streaming audience, which I think is important because to some degree I think a lot of what drew people to Screamo back in like the early 2010s when the wave was happening was there was this kind of exclusivity factor because a lot of the shit was out of print and you had to like trawl through all these old Mediafire and Blogspot, just the absolute dregs, like risking a virus every time you tried to download like page 99 or whatever. But I really do appreciate Repeater Records making like vinyl reissues and streaming accessible for this sort of stuff.
And busting those fucking Discogs prices down.
Oh yeah.
That's a huge part of it. That and kind of how it started with us is the Discogs prices were just ridiculous.
Yeah.
We were like, well.
Yeah, I had like all the versions of Gospel in my want list, and now I don't have to bite the bullet on $120. Now I can mail order it for $25.
That's with shipping.
Yeah. Any other specific releases in the back catalog that you want to shout out besides you and I?
City of Caterpillar, who are on the list.
Fuck
That's
yeah.
a good one. It was a good segue into talking about the record label, was the fact that we have one of the self-titled songs on this top 100 list.
I just kind of want to squeeze in a question here about, like, is it hard to convince these bands with out of print records to put them back in print, or to like trust you to do it or anything like that?
It's been pretty easy so far, actually. My old band played with most of the bands we've released, and so it was easy to, be like, hey, remember when we played together? We're doing this record label. And the same with Broken Hearts Are Blue. We didn't never played with them or anything, but they were very very easy to talk to and trusted us pretty quickly. It was great.
Cool.
Yeah, that reissue was like a whole like remastering endeavor too, right?
Yeah, that was the band. The band remastered it, and they were looking for a label, sort of like tongue in cheek, and then I hit them up.
And I also do want to thank you personally for putting Funeral Diners The Underdark on streaming finally.
That was pretty easy. I know a guy.
I feel like this list would have been much different if people still read forfa.com. Shout out to Andy. All right.
So, Collins, what's up with Closure these days?
Closure is I'm actually going to finish the record tonight. We're doing our first full length, so that's exciting. I think it'll be out probably about mid-April. We're getting as soon as it's done recording, we're kind of just hitting the mixing and mastering process pretty hard, because we are kind of impatient to put it out. It's been a long time in the making, and I'm just super stoked about it. We have a couple tours coming up. We have we're touring with Old Soul, a counterintuitive band. They're really awesome, so we're really excited to be on the road with them. Playing with Grad Life, King of Heck later in the month, which is going to be fun. It's always cool to be able to hang out with them. I only get to see them like once in a while. And yeah, we've been busy with shows, been busy with writing the record. It's just been a really hectic time, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to get the record out.
Fuck yeah. I think this is actually a really good group of people to discuss this list, because Collins, who is in newer wave, twinklier, maybe more pop-oriented emo band. We also got Seth, who specializes in the older stuff, the more emotive, hardcore-driven stuff. And we have Kyle and I, who are just straight-up nerds. And additionally, Seth is representing the West Coast.
Yeah.
We got Collins out in Syracuse, Kyle's Midwest, and I'm in Texas, the South. East Coast, West Coast, down South, Midwest. Nowadays, everybody knows how to get fresh.
Did you plan that ahead of time?
No, I just have atmosphere lyrics stuck in my head every moment of every day.
Honestly, I think this is the second time we've had someone from the West Coast, which is like a fucking shame. I want to plan an episode where we specifically talk about like West Coast, California, Bay Area specific emo, because like it's so unrepresented on this podcast.
It truly is, and it also is a scene that's like real close to my heart, because there was a lot of traveling to California from Las Vegas for shows when I was coming up. So, but yeah, I think right now it's just been Seth and Alex from Heavy Stacking, right?
Yep. Well, Shannon from Wake was still in bed, but that was.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
San Jose. So yeah, this is the last thing, but I that person who was talking shit on us tried to claim that we talked shit on Retirement Party and Awake but Still in Bed, which is insane since Shannon's been on, and we always talk up Retirement Party.
Yeah. So the 100 greatest emo songs of all time, a sweeping look at rock's most misunderstood genre. came out on Vulture.com. I don't read this website at all, but it seems like a big listicle to come out for this website.
Yeah, this is huge, especially since Vulture is mostly more known for their, I think, television coverage more than anything. But it's really cool. This list has also been in the making since January 2019, as David Anthony pointed out when he was on. And there's a couple. I know a couple behind the scenes facts. Like, for instance, Little Peep was supposed to be on this list, but they like rejiggered the ordering and who was included something like 20 times in the lead up to it coming out. I think Glass Beach was also on this list at one point.
Wow.
Do we want to talk about this little intro bust, this essay up here at the beginning?
First off, that Ian MacKaye quote, while I think they chose it because they wanted to like be kind of inflammatory, but there's a little context left out of it that I think is kind of important to talk about. It is after he said that quote that opens it up, the stupidest fucking thing I've heard in my entire life, Ian MacKaye on Emo Core in 1987. He went on to say after that When was hardcore not emotional. That was like
right.
That was part of the quote.
Yeah,
it's kind of, you know, cutting it down to just that one sentence is sort of not doing Ian MacKaye any favors. It's not doing the context of what they're talking about any favors, and it's just kind of unnecessary.
Yeah,
to cut it off like that.
I think they're doing it for like the juxtaposition between, you know, the fact that they're about to do the 100 greatest emo songs of all time, and one of the founders of the genre diss the term. But that's I feel like
of course, but it just seems like it just you know, they're just taking the quote and chopping it down to like prove their point instead of showing like providing the whole quote. That all rubbed me a little wrong.
I understand where you're coming from, but I also think part of it is just kind of like showing that like the disdain for the term and like kind of like the self-loathing for being involved in it has been central to emo's DNA from the get-go. I've also always appreciated that Ian said that he was reading in his Thrasher the other day that apparently we are emo core. I still read Thrasher. Does anyone else here still read Thrasher?
Nope. I don't anymore, but I found so many bands from Thrasher in the 90s.
Yeah, they just did an interview with Higher Power in the most recent issue because I have a subscription to Thrasher. It was a pretty cool interview. I didn't realize that the Higher Power kids were so into Molly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. So basically, the thrust of the Higher Power interview was just like A, how many drugs they did, and B, how crazy it is that Americans have guns. At one point, they found like a dead body, like a dead guy slumped over in his car while they were on tour. So hardcore bands still living life. I feel that perhaps in this intro bust there is a bit too much attention paid to the fact that they couldn't put Brand New on this list. I feel like they lamented that at some great length. At the end of the day, I feel like they did this because they knew a lot of people were going to be like, why is Brand New not on this list? But also, I do know that Ian Cohen is a big separate the art from artist person and would have absolutely put Brand New on this list if he could.
I heard Brand New for the first time a couple years ago. Didn't really like it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I wasn't a huge fan either. I haven't listened to them in a long time, but I don't remember. I remember everybody really enjoying it, in high school and whatnot. But I just never really clicked for me.
Yeah, they were a big deal for me for a long time.
I think they were for a lot of people, which is like what it's so difficult about the whole like situation for most everybody is that it's like kind of unfortunate to have to like let that go.
One of the very first episodes we ever did, we actually kind of discussed the Brand New thing at length because it was breaking at the time. And go back and listen to that episode, you can actually hear me starting to cry a little bit talking about it. That's the essence of emo, I think.
I'm surprised that there isn't any of those brand new adjacent circle bands on this list, because there's no Manchester, no Kevin Devine,
yeah, no Bad Books. But I think the reason for that is because I personally would consider those bands much more solidly indie rock, like not even really emo adjacent.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't stop them with a few other things. So.
I know.
That is true. Kyle, do you agree with this statement? Cloud Nothing's 2012 album Attack on Memory sounded like a Steve Albini produced Get Up Kids.
Never heard Get Up Kids in their music. Also, Steve Albini on record from Cloud Nothing's record about producing that album was him not talking in the studio, playing Scrabble on his iPad and pressing record.
That's a classic Steve Albini quote.
It's weird because I've seen a lot of these takes in this pre-write-up on Twitter from like Ian Cohen. Like him talking about like Guitar Rock dying and like Cloud Nothings. Yeah, I think this is a good preamble to this list. I do agree that there's an odd amount of brand new talk.
But aside from the brand new talk, this definitely just seems like a best of Ian Cohen Twitter compilation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sparkle was mentioned. I like that.
Yeah, that's right.
That is one of like the greatest embarrassments of my life, is coining the term sparkle punk. Probably that, and the fact that when I first heard the term vape pen, I thought it was Bape Pen, as in like a pen produced by the streetwear breathing ape. Those are two of my biggest personal fumbles, I think. All right. Do we want to get into it?
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned this, but we're going to go 100 through 1. So we start off with number 100, which is Forest with Tamago from their 2016 album.
Never heard them.
Well, I appreciate that they're throwing in some international diversity on this list right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's kind of like acknowledged in the write-up here: China's Chinese football and Japan's falls. And shout out to Toe. I feel like Toe is not emo, but they are probably one of the biggest like overarching influences on a lot of specifically Asian emo, I think, because a lot of bands from that scene tend to incorporate their kind of like post-rock and math rock influences, even out to, more screamo bands like Heaven in Her Arms. Is Envy on this list?
No.
Now that I mentioned that? No.
Envy's not on the list.
Well, shit. But Forests are good. Aren't they on hiatus now, though?
They are.
Yep.
They are. Yeah, I feel like this write-up might have been written before they went on hiatus, because it's kind of described as if they are still a band. Forests are trying to remind everyone that emo exists beyond Western borders.
I think they're actually, I heard talks about them coming back. I think their drummer went to study in Australia or something like that. Like some sort of international study program. So I don't know. I don't really follow Forrest too much, but I thought I heard something about a possible reunion.
Word. But I think this is a pretty good starting point for the list, honestly. Yeah. It's recent, but not iconoclastic. Solid kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
Then 99 Jejune, This Afternoon's Malady. I feel like no one listens to Jejune anymore.
That was my note.
That was a surprising second choice for me. I loved Jejune when they were around, and saw them a few times. Their drummer had one of the best drum faces of any drummer I've ever seen. And if you can find a video of the drummer playing, it is spectacular.
This band's not on Spotify, which is interesting.
No, and it's real upsetting, because I do think actually, like, if the kids were able to rediscover Jejune now, they'd probably be really into it, because there's a lot of like the jangle pop thing going on.
Yeah.
I feel like Johnny Marr's influence on guitar work is not as much of an influence on emo as people like to make it out to be, but I actually do hear it in Jejune.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the back and forth vocal harmonies, I think, are something that if you're into like future teens, you'd probably be really into Jejune. So yeah, this is a good shout.
Is this like the one song, or like is this like their best song according to people?
It depends on who you talk to.
Okay.
But I think the song on the Jimmy Eat World
Yes.
Vince
Yes,
Gill
yes, yes.
three-way split, I think that's their best song.
Yeah.
Personally.
And I believe there's like a weird printing error with that song because it's on a compilation Jejun did, as well, like a compilation of Jejun songs. I mean, and it's under a different name. Yeah, no, the Jimmy Eat World split is very solid. Jimmy Eat World had a ton of fucking great splits. The Christie Front Drive split is also like god tier. Oh shit, the Van Pelt. So Seth, I'm curious as to your thoughts about this. So this is ex Native Nod.
Yeah.
And do you feel like maybe the Van Pelt don't get enough credit, like when it comes to that transition between within emo from emotive hardcore to something more indie rock oriented?
I mean, I don't know that they don't get enough credit, but it's just like Chris Leo's Outpost, just so solid. All the Native Nod songs are amazing, and he wrote them when he was like 16. I think that everything he did then and even into Vague Angels is just great. He's a hell of a songwriter.
He's a phenomenal songwriter, and I would take the Van Pelt over any Ted Leo and the Pharmacist record. Really, any Ted Leo record.
You don't have to pit brother against brother, but yeah.
Sure. Really, but any Ted Leo record except for Citizen's Arrest, which I do love.
I think the Van Pelt played a bunch of shows on the Cap and Jazz reunion, so even if they're underrated, I think they're still getting in front of people, if that matters.
Yeah. I think they're gonna go down, unfortunately, as maybe like mid-tier in popularity, but 98 on 100 Best Emo Songs of All Time list, on a huge publication that probably maybe in another time would not have acknowledged a band like this. I think it's pretty good.
I always associate the Van Pelt with one band that is criminally left off this list, and I'll probably forget it, but Karate is not on this list, and that's fucked up.
Oh, right. Yeah. Karate. Neither is Rye Coalition, which is
there's a lot of omissions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the one of the weirdest things, I know we'll talk about this later, but some bands got multiple songs on this list,
yeah.
which is really unnecessary.
I feel like if you're gonna make a list like this, it should be one song per band and leave the highest number song on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One band in particular who I love has 2 songs on this list, and I think that was a mistake, personally. But we'll get to that later. 97, Copeland, Paula Sparks. How do we feel about Copeland?
It's another one I've never heard, unfortunately.
Have you ever listened to the band Park?
I'm not familiar with them either.
They kind of lie within the Park realm, I think, of like more glistening emo pop. I don't know if I would have put Copeland on this list in 2020. Maybe in like 2005 if I was making this list.
Yeah, I personally really dig this. It's like emo poppy, like the beginnings of it. I feel like the falsetto and the vocals and like this.
Oh, for sure.
I think for me, like, I mean, like where my tastes lie, but I think that this stuff is sick, and I think it was super important, and so especially getting later down the list with bands like Panic and MCR and stuff, I feel like this stuff kind of started to like pave the way for emo pop.
I once wrote a tweet making fun of people specifically that like bands like this that were like dudes in 2011 were starting blog spots because they had the thought, what happened to the format in Copeland? Because like
shout out to the format together.
Because like that there was that specific time of like Copeland and the format, and I'm gonna throw in a band like Limbeck, and it was like all these like emo adjacent indie, like not on major label type of bands that like all broke up around the same time, and like the same like 1,000 people just kept remembering them like 3 years later and like tried to write about them and stuff.
I do want to specify that I actually very much enjoy Copeland. But I believe Aaron Marsh wrote the final song on They're Only Chasing Safety by Under Oath. He wrote the lyrics to that. And which is why that song in particular is very like faith-y, more like very Christian.
Right.
So early shout out on this list to the Christian emo contingent.
They didn't have Roadside Monument.
Is Further Seems Forever on here? I don't
They're
remember.
shouted out in the intro.
Yeah, they didn't quite make it.
I think I might have picked Further Seems Forever over Copeland, but that's just me. 96, Panic at the Disco. Lying is the most fun a girl can have without taking her clothes off. Which I feel like this song title could be construed as misogynist. It's a quote from the movie Closer. It's followed up by the second half of the quote, the song, But It's Better If You Do. Hey, Collins.
Yes.
Talk about Panic at the Disco, because I know you got feelings.
I love Panic at the Disco. I think that Brendan Urie is one of the best vocalists of the genre of all time, if not probably the most talented and consistent vocalist of the genre. And honestly, I would say like the past couple decades for me. I just think that his live performance is so impressive. His range is incredible. His improvement over the years is insane too. Like it's pretty rare to see especially a vocalist improve over the years. Brendan Urie started when he was, I think the band was super young. I think they were 16 when they got signed to Fall Out Boy's record label.
To Decadence, yeah.
Yeah. So they started out when he was young, which is understandable that his vocal performance might not be super consistent and whatnot. But I mean, the fact that he's still going today and has improved so much it's extremely impressive to me. He's always been a huge influence in terms of vocals. I think as a band, Panic has my favorite aesthetic, the Cirque du Soleil, Moulin Rouge sort of weird, almost steampunky aesthetic. I think was super important for them for the first record. I like that each record has a sort of concept to it. They're very consistent thematically, which I love in terms of full lengths, especially with bands like My Chem and stuff like that. I think Panic did a really good job. I wish Brendan would have killed it. I wish he would have just done solo stuff, preferably after the fourth record. I think
it's weird. I feel almost like Panic at the Disco, the material they're putting out now would be even more popular if Brendan was selling himself as a solo artist, because that is what it is at this point.
I completely agree. It's just, and I don't think that bands owe it to anybody to remain sonically similar to their old stuff. I like when bands grow and I like when bands sound completely different. That's why I love AFI. They're one of my favorite bands, and each record changes almost completely. You'd be hard pressed to find an AFI record unless you're talking the mid 90s stuff that sounds the same. So I don't think that Panic owes it to anybody to sound the same, but I do think that right now it's so dramatically different that it should just be a Brendan Urie, and I think that it would do a lot better if it wasn't Panic at the Disco, because Panic at the Disco you hear and you're like, oh, that's the Groom's Bride is a horror band or whatever, right? That's the Chime Door band, and it hasn't really been the same for a long time. But I think that they're one of the best emo pop bands ever. I would. It's hard. I personally just I'm so. I have just stopped caring about it's just technically true emo sort of thing. I'll say it. Panic at the Disco was integral to the genre, and I don't care if you think they're emo or not. But I think that they're an amazing band, regardless of what you want to categorize them as.
Word. That's one perspective. Seth, do you have another perspective on Panic at the Disco?
The hair band, I don't really have an opinion on. I think that yeah, I do think that they're important for that, like that wave of kind of pop punk emo stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I think that one record's really funny where they obviously heard the band for the first time. And then started like wearing hats and stuff. That's about all I got on Panic at the Disco.
And Kyle, third perspective on Panic at the Disco.
I think more specifically on the song, I think it's kind of a bold pick. I think you could easily put a bigger hit. No other opinion.
I like this one.
I don't think I would have picked this song. I would have picked Build God, Then We'll Talk.
Yeah.
Does a better job of like incorporating like the Baroque and cabaret influences into more of an overarching emo pop song structure. But I do think Panic at the Disco deserves a spot on this list in so much as A Fever You Can't Sweat Out really represents like the end point of hardcore's influence on emo pop, because aside from Brendan really loving Every Time I Die, Panic at the Disco was one of the first emo pop bands that didn't really come from any sort of DIY background. As David Anthony points out here, and as I pointed out in my piece on this record, they probably are one of the best candidates for like the industry plant accusation, because they just had a lot of help right from the get-go. But I do really love this record. I think as just like pop songwriting, it really shines. I think it is historically important to put it here. And that's my take. 95, Dad's Shit Twins. Hell yeah!
I can't believe Dad's is on here.
Because you heard
like
they were
Dad's.
assholes at shows.
No, I like Dad's. It's just, to me, it's just funny that it's just like there was this whole fuck Dad's thing for so long that was, I don't know if it was unfounded or not. I wasn't really involved in emo in 2012. I only got the story from Austin from camping in Alaska, and I don't think Austin is the most like unbiased person when it comes to talking about dads. I just think that it's funny that they're on here. I do think they're a great band though. I think this song in particular like got a lot of people into the genre.
Yeah, half the thrust of the Fuck Dads train was because dads were the top of the fucking heap for emo revival, like at this time. Maybe second only to Algernon. And I believe after this, their place kind of got usurped by The World Is a Beautiful Place. Dads were fucking huge. Mm-hmm. This is their best song, I think. So this is a good pick.
I mean, leave it to like DIY emo kids to like hate on a new band that is popular.
I don't think the hate started until like 2015-ish. I mean, like the hate as in like the fuck dads coming with an accusation here and there.
Not on our emo, but I definitely remember this era. There was some shit talk about them, like in the punknews.org comment sections for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know about any of that drama at all. I thought they were a good band.
Yeah, they're a good band. I saw them once with Tiger's Jaw and Touche Amore, and they fucking killed it. They did not, however, play this song. So
that's
could have been a better show. Yeah. Ooh, shit. 94, Evergreen, a couple curled up pictures. This is the more emotive hardcore Evergreen. There was a different one that was like more Midwesty, but this is, in my opinion, the better Evergreen. Nina Corcoran put this one on the list, and she is throughout this list a champion of some of the more underrepresented emotive hardcore bands throughout the 90s. This is a great band and a great song.
Yeah, I'm a huge Evergreen fan, and if anybody in the band is listening to this and wants to put out a discography on Repeater Records, get in touch. That's
Hell yeah.
This is semi-obscure, right? Like you would have to dig to find this band.
yeah,
A little bit, yeah.
yeah. They're really really great. Everything they put out is amazing, and that LP they put out is really hard to find, and just an amazing record. And the Hated were really great too.
I feel like The Hated is another band that in a different world probably would have been on this list. But I think that I'm not sure what I make of the contrast between like the comparison between Evergreen and the Hated, because I feel like the Hated were more into like constructing soundscapes. They had like lots of like longer songs that just kind of like rode these chiming, driving like octave chord riffs for like 4 minutes to 8 minutes at a time. And Evergreen, I think, is a bit more structured and purposeful than that.
Yeah, that's a good take. I like that.
Yeah. Collins, you ever listen to Evergreen?
Yeah, there's just something about the this era of music that I love. I'm not super well versed in it, but it's just something. I don't know if it's the recording or what exactly does it, but just the way that the vocal melodies are kind of derived, I think it's just really nice for me to hear. I don't know, like they put it here, like meandering guitar lines mixed with the way that the kind of long drawn out melody. It's not super complex. I think for me, it's just really cool. I hadn't listened to Evergreen before I checked out the list, but I think that it's a cool addition, especially if you're trying to get into that 90s, mid 90s kind of stuff. I think it's cool.
Nina is kind of like I said earlier, is kind of like a champion of my favorite genre of emo on this list, which is emo in between Rites of Spring, but before Midwest emo really became like the definitive word on 90s emo. Just kind of that elongated, desperate, cinematic mode of hardcore sound, and they're a real good starting place for it.
Yeah, Nina definitely had my favorite picks on this whole list, and the Evergreen popping up was a great addition. I
really admire Nina for just being like representing my personal confluence of tastes in that she loves this shit, but her favorite band of all time is Blink-182. Like that that to me that to me is like everything about my personality when it comes to music. So hell yeah. 93, Origami Angel, Dr. Hoomst. Most recent pick on this list. Fucking great pick. I would have, like, as far as the specific song goes, I probably would have picked Say Less instead. I think that's the best song on this record. But fucking phenomenal. Phenomenal song, phenomenal band, phenomenal people.
Is it too early is the question, though?
I think if you're going to put more recent songs on this list, you have to, like, within the last 2 years, you have to hedge your bets and put them a bit lower.
Yeah, and I also think that Origami Angel is totally a fitting band for that wave to put on here.
If anyone is going to represent the current wave of emo on this list, I'm glad it's Origami Angel. And congrats on them on the recent signing to Counterintuitive. That's huge. Seth, you ever listened to Origami Angel?
I haven't heard them yet. No, there's a few bands on here that I need to check out.
Yeah, they're really good friends of ours. I am not sure how much they would comport with your tastes, but I think they do what they do.
I'm a pretty well-rounded guy. I can get into a lot of stuff.
I just mentioned that because there's like this, as David points out, vocal melodies ripped from classic Fall Out Boy records, which I actually didn't really hear until he said that, but it's totally there. 92, Crash of Rhinos.
I've hardly listened to this band.
They're good.
Does everyone? Would everyone call them emo?
They're more pop punk, but they're great.
I mean, I definitely hear like the revival kind of sound, like the hectic, like heavier, yelly vocal sort of thing. Yeah. I never really listened to this band a ton, honestly.
I feel like it would have been this band or This Town Needs Guns in this spot. Look, kind of represent British emo of this era. And I think Crash of Rhinos is a bit more traditionally emo than TTNG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have agreed with TTNG on the list. As awesome as they are, I don't know if it would really have fit. I never really considered them emo.
They have more math rock in your estimation?
Yeah, definitely. I think just in especially like the vocal delivery, and then obviously the mathiness of the guitar work. It's definitely way more reminiscent of most math rock to me than it is emo. And lyrically too, I think. I don't really know if it's super lyrically they're super emo.
I enjoy the shout out to the drummer because Crash of Rhinos has one of the best fucking drummers of this era for sure, along with Dad's.
Yeah, didn't the Dad's drummer also do the vocals too? I think that's
I was gonna say
yes.
Crash of Rhinos drummer doesn't sing at the same time.
Yeah.
91 Ethel Meserve. This band never ever gets the credit they deserve, and I am so beyond happy to see them on this list. Nina again says what I was going to say by pointing out that they influenced Seisha, which is true. If I had to describe Seisha sound, it would probably be a combination of Ethel Meserve and Anasarka. This is one of the bands that is most responsible for kind of the math rock wing of emo. They did it without ever sacrificing the passion or intensity, and I've always been a huge fan of them from the first time that I heard them, many years ago, and I was pleasantly surprised to see them here.
Yeah, I was too. I thought that was a good pick. You can trace a sonic connection between them and all the way to the newer waves of emo, and it's they're very underrated, and it's good they made the list.
Yeah, this is super reminiscent of just what I think of as emo, the yelly kind of vocals, especially the lead guitar for some reason on this song, just it's so reminiscent of what I think of as the kind of epitome of the genre, which is cool. I like this band.
Hell yeah.
Sounds more timeless than some of bands from this era that sound kind of more dated. This one, for some reason, I think it's just because you can trace it to what's going on now. It sounds timeless.
Yeah, absolutely. So number 90 is a pick that I don't think I agree with at all.
Yeah, shake my head. SMH.
Yeah.
SMDH.
I'm gonna have to opt out of this one too. I've never heard Los Campesinos, but the description doesn't sound like it should be on this list.
I think if you're gonna put this on your list, you need to argue for it, and I don't think the write-up argues enough why it belongs.
There's enough good emo songs that you shouldn't have to argue to put one on this list. That's
true.
Yes. So it says they self-proclaimed that they're the UK's first and only emo band, which, what the fuck?
That's a bold statement.
That is an extremely bold statement. Even Ian Cohen in this write-up says that they're overtly pavement worshipping, and if there is a dividing line between indie rock and emo, I think it is when you pull more from pavement that makes you more indie rock.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna act
they're
like
a
I
great
haven't.
Band.
I'm not
They're
saying
a great
they're bad. I just
band.
have nothing to say about it.
I'm not gonna act like I haven't seen people try and call this band emo, including the band themselves. And it's just one of those things where it's yes, you could like this style of indie and like emo, but it doesn't make it emo.
Just the way that they stack their melodies is completely more reminiscent of even the fucking Unicorns than anything remotely emo. They're the definition of kind of a more polished version of the fractured indie rock stuff from the 90s, like Superchunk. Well, maybe later Superchunk. And I don't understand them on this list whatsoever. Sorry, Ian. 89, The Used, Taste of Ink. I think Dina has her headphones on in the other room, so she can't hear me talking about The Used, which she loathes with every fiber of her being. One time I tried to put them on the aux, she actually The only other time she's been that serious about throwing me out of the car when I put something on the aux is 1000 gex.
Good taste.
Yeah. Oh no, she just texted me a laughing emoji. Cool. But I fucking love the Used, or at least the first 2 Used records.
Hell yeah.
Like, they were so extremely important to like the cresting of early 2000s post-hardcore. Like, the Used definitely benefited from Thursday's Full Collapse and Glassjaw's Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Silence, but they put like so much more of like a well-constructed pop spin on it. I think Bert is like one of the most underrated vocalists in this era. He has such a powerful scream. He actually has like a pretty shocking ability to hit high notes. As far as emo goes, he is like one of the most emotionally bulimic frontmen I have ever seen in my life. Like, you can listen to live recordings of them in this era, and he's singing so hard that he actually like would vomit on stage. This band just to me represents like like I'm not from Utah, but growing up I spent a lot of time there because that's where my grandparents lived. Kids who are into alternative culture in Utah dive into it so hard. It's not exactly all rural, but there just kind of is like a glass ceiling on getting out of shitty white trash life, especially if you're someone like Bert who struggled with addiction to meth and alcoholism. And I don't know. I find a lot to admire about the Used's ascent to popularity.
Yeah, I think it represents a really great time in the genre. They just started, with them and My Chem releasing their first record around the same time, I think 2002-ish, and this just started the ascent to, like, I feel like the last big, like, rock and roll bands.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think now, like, you have bands that are bands, I guess, that have, like, guitars and stuff in them and drums, but they're not really, like, rock and roll bands. I feel like that they use in My Chem and so on were really the last kind of big rock and roll bands, which is great that they started,
It's weird to think about My Chemical Romance's ascent like being inextricable from the Used and how much that band boosted them. Just how the friendship like helped both of their careers, even until there was that weird falling out between them. But I think the Used represent kind of they were a band for a contingent of people who felt alienated from the macho posturing of nu metal, but still wanted something more heavy and raw than like the Strokes or whatever garage rock revival was happening at that time, who wanted like the vulnerability and catchiness of pop punk without all the weird baggage that came with it. And so I'm always going to appreciate the Used for filling that space.
Yeah, so I was 11 when this shit came out, and I was kind of afraid by the Used because they didn't try and hide anything. It seemed like they were all like putting it out there in their image and their lyrics. I mean, they had a song called "Box of Sharp Objects." I was like, I'm not fucking listening to that. But this song
that's
was
my favorite song of theirs.
Yeah, but like now I think this shit is like the songwriting there is a lot more complex than like, I don't know, just power chords and stuff. And like song structure is really interesting too.
Layered, the bass melodies like are like actually like sophisticated counterpoints, and the drumming is incredible. And credit to John Feldman for the way that he produced the drums on this album, because like you feel every hit in your bones. Like it actually sounds like you're inside a giant room with the Used playing around you. So yeah, lots of love for the Used. Hey Seth.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Used?
Oh, I've never heard them. It's another one of my blind spots on this list.
They're worth listening to because famously Burt McCracken was heavily influenced by Blake Donner, who was a kid who was like and really into like the hardline and Hare Krishna scenes in Utah. Like I said, like when you're into alternative culture in Utah, you just dive into it. And at one point, he was giving up all his material possessions, to become Krishna, and handed Bert a box with Converge, Sunny Day Real Estate, and Ink and Dagger in it. And you can definitely hear all those influences on this record, just kind of like in a more polished way.
That's pretty. I didn't know about the Monster Crew connection. That's pretty great.
Oh yeah. What does the phrase grocery dividers mean to you?
We're over an hour in. We've made it through 12
I don't
songs. We got to pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're picking up the pace. Shotmaker. I fucking love Shotmaker.
Maybe my favorite band on this list.
I believe Andy from Funeral Diner or Funeral Diner adjacent described Shotmaker as a band that desperately wanted to play fast but somehow couldn't. So they are just fucking vicious, like attached to the rhythm in such like an inextricable way. Every song feels like a fucking explosion.
Yes, the bass and drums, the rhythm section of Shotmaker is really like what sets them apart in a huge way. And they just wrote such good songs. Like the songs are flawless and like they make it look so easy.
I would advise anyone who was like listening to like these songs straight through. To me, it's impossible to listen to Sky without listening to Shortwave Radio, which is the next song. Those two songs are such like a fucking 1-2 punch of an opener. I do think that they were kind of the band that was like, hey, Canada can play fucking pissed off emo too. And from Shotmaker, you can, go to like One-Eyed God Prophecy or Drift or Human Greed and just kind of like see the like really like the foundations being laid for screamo in a way that wouldn't happen in America until Seisha and You and I came along. That's my take.
There was definitely, there were definitely U.S. bands that around the same time that were like doing similar stuff, like Reach Out and.
Oh sure, like Sleeping Body or Honeywell, yeah.
Yeah, Honeywell, Portraits of Past, like that all. That I think that it was just such a rich time for that genre to like grow and change. And Shotmaker is definitely one of the best that did it at that time.
Solid Canadian representation. All right, 87. Shout out to Keith, who has been on this podcast. Empire, I was a lonely estate. Keep what you have built up here.
Should have been How to Make Love Stay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that Empire is probably the band that really the best at copying Minerals and serenading?
Maybe in like a I copied your homework type of way, but there's been like a lot of bands that have just taken the format or the song structure.
Oh, sure. I just mean like Empire did it in a way that felt uniquely theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. I think Empire is super integral in the emo genre. I mean, there are still kids to this day that I'll see posting on like emo Facebook groups like, I just heard this band Empire, like what is like this, like what else can I listen to that's similar to this? And they're still making waves. Count Your Lucky Stars is back. They're signing new bands, they're putting out music. It's really cool to see the impact that Keith and Kathy have made on the scene. I think without them it'd be different. It'd definitely be different today.
Fucking excellent song, excellent band, but you're right, probably would have picked a different song. Hoover, Electrolux. I always felt alienated from other fans of old emo in that I don't get Hoover. Is that heretical to say?
I think some of the kids are starting to get hip to Hoover, to be honest.
Yeah.
And
I
you
think
feel alienated
they're
by that,
super
like-
accessible.
Yeah.
They're definitely good. I just don't get them, you know? They do the evil Fugazi thing, but I think the Policy of Three did it a little better. I don't know. I have a real hard time with Hoover. I'm not gonna dispute their spot on this list though. Like they are definitely important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean Hoover can be a little obtuse to get into, but they did the like DC like post-hardcore, but with dub influences, like go-go influences. They did that in a really good way. I think that the Lincoln Hoover split 7-inch is one of the better splits of that time.
Oh yeah, the two-sided coin.
It's so
split.
Good.
Yeah,
so good.
I do love Lincoln side on that. Should I just like give Hoover another chance?
I would, but it's a matter of taste.
Yeah. I guess I just always prefer the more like outwardly aggressive brand from this era of emo. Collins, you ever listen to Hoover?
I have not. Should I? I'm kind of getting mixed.
I think so.
Feelings.
Yeah.
No, don't take my like arguably asinine take on Hoover like at face value. You should listen to Hoover. I am really actually genuinely upset about this next pick. Coheed and Cambria, A Favorite House Atlantic. I fucking hate this band.
So
I think this band
I like the band.
enormous pile of shit band.
So
Yeah, not really interested. Not really interested in talking about Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah, I have nothing. I have nothing to say about Coheed.
So Coheed has made like multiple of these big publication lists, and I have yet to do my own research as to what makes Coheed emo. Like, do they have like a DIY history or anything like that?
Yeah,
No.
they came up in the DIY scene, but that's about it.
Okay.
Like, I mean, yeah, something to be said for coming up in the DIY scene. I guess I just never heard like the DIY emo influence ever.
Oh shit! I have a story about Coheed and Cambria. Actually, this is kind of crazy.
Speak on it.
So it's gonna get ruined. Usually, I'll tell this story to Coheed fans without like really like much preamble. But essentially, I have a friend named Jeff Watkins who owns a local comic book store in Syracuse. He was super. He was actually one of the guys that booked Hellfest, the original Hellfest, for those first few years. The big one for me being Hellfest 2003 with MyChem on there. So Jeff has been super integral in the music scene and in the DIY scene in Syracuse forever. He used to manage Shabuti back in the day, and so they were playing. They got this last minute slot at a show, and it's like 2000 and it's like 1999 or 2000 or some shit like that. I don't know what year it was, but it was around the time where the cliche, like there's a studio rep or a label rep in the audience, and he's like, I like that band, like you got Moxie, kid. And so he went up to Jeff and was like, this band Shabuti's pretty fucking good. And Jeff was like, yeah, I'm actually their manager, we've been working on a lot of stuff, we're excited and this and that. And he's like, I want to sign him to my label. And he's like, cool. He's like, but the name's got to fucking go. Shabuti, what the fuck is that shit? And then they became Coheed and Cambria. So, and then they signed to the label and then never talked to Jeff again. And now Jeff fucking hates Coheed and Cambria. Yeah. So like, you can't bring that story up around Jeff because he will get fucking pissed because he fucking hates Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah. No, I also fucking hate Coheed and Cambria.
Me and Jeff have something in common.
Yeah.
Coheed and Cambria.
Something that always makes me laugh is sometimes I imagine just how much Claudio Sanchez just fucking seethes in jealousy when he thinks about the fact that My Chemical Romance got action figures made of them before he
Okay, move on.
84, Appleseed Cast, on reflection. Ian Cohen says this list doesn't really do the Appleseed Cast any favors.
Sometimes I just don't know why he says things.
And he makes a lot of like caveats about not putting in something from the End of the Ring Wars or Mare Vitalis, which are, you know, the more like traditionally emo records from Appleseed Cast. But I feel like it's impossible to talk about emo of this era without talking about Appleseed Cast.
Mm-hmm.
They were on Deep Elm, one of Deep Elm's first bands, and like, you know, the direct descendants of Midwest emo, like going into that era. So yeah, I mean I wouldn't have chosen that song, but
same.
I think without Appleseed Cast, a lot of emo kids never would have gotten into post rock. So yeah, they're important. But yeah, no, I don't think I would have chosen this song. And I would have gone with one of the safer picks. 83, Swing Kids, Blue Note, perfect fucking band, perfect fucking song. Truly the only Justin Pearson band that belongs on this list. Kind of in the same way that without Appleseed Cast, a lot of kids would have gotten into post rock. I think without Swing Kids, a lot of emo fans would have never gotten into grind and power violence, or just generally like, or dyeing your hair black. Oh, that fucking that hairstyle that looks like you got like
the
shot in the back of the head.
Shotgun blast, yeah,
style.
the shotgun blast hairstyle. That's it.
I think Justin Pearson maybe gets slightly more credit than he should. I think 18 Visions also deserves a lot of credit for Scene Hair. You're not about 18 Visions?
I'm not about to discuss 18 Visions, their contributions to Scene Hair.
No, I would someday love to write a book about the history of Scene Hair, personally. But yeah, fuck yeah, Swing Kids, fuck yeah, 31G. And I appreciate the shouts out to Blood Brothers, Plot to Blow Up the Eiffel Tower here. Swing Kids are not sassy, but like the band that came right after Swing Kids, Crimson Curse, I think really helped invent sass. I'm always going to appreciate like a sass representation.
The Swing Kid 7 inches is another one of my like favorite additions to this list. That San Diego scene was just so amazing
vibrant
at that time. Just like everything coming out was the 31G and GSL. Like it's great. And Swing Kids was this that 7-inch was just like perfect. And the split with Spanacorzo.
Yeah,
amazing stuff.
Want to hear a funny story that may or may not be true? I'm just taking Justin Pearson's word for it because it was in his autobiography. But the band Circle Takes the Square really wanted to get signed to 31G, and the way they went about this was, in order to get Justin Pearson's attention, they lit a bag of dog shit on fire on his porch, and then he chased them in his van like halfway down the fucking highway before giving up. So
that might not have been Circle Takes the Square that did that. It could have just been somebody, playing a prank on Justin.
Yeah, he did. He did say it was Circle Takes the Square in the book, but since he never caught up to that, there's a chance it might not have been Circle Takes the Square. But there's your Atlanta San Diego connection.
I need to butt in one more time to yell at y'all. We are on pace for like a 5-hour episode with no exaggeration if we go at this pace. So like I'm talking like a minute tops to get through the last 80, unless we want to do like break this in half.
I'd be okay with breaking it in half.
Breaking it in half. When will
That's
guys be down to the other half of the episode though?
I mean, I'm around. It's kind of whatever. Or I mean, we could just like.
I'm okay with racing through personally.
Just like pick, just like a minute.
Yeah.
Because if we do a minute, we still have like an hour left, which is like I'm fine with. But I mean, I thought it was gonna be like quick little blurb, like one person, and then like when you get to like a big one that you're really passionate about, you take like another second about it. But
Yeah, like no antidotes or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, if like
Okay.
you get to like My Chem or something, or you get to like fucking Seisha or Indian Summer if they're on here. I don't know if they're on here, but
Okay. Okay. I'm down. All right, let's go. 82, Boys Life, Fire Engine Red. Fucking song. Great fucking record.
Perfect placement,
Really,
perfect song choice.
Yep. Foundational for Midwest emo.
Yeah, I was gonna say this represents Midwest emo and probably the best on the list.
There's definitely an argument to be made that Boys Life were one of like 3 bands that really invented that style of Midwest emo, along with like Christie Front Drive, Seventh Story Mountain. They were around like really early on. 81, One Last Wish, My Better Half. Surprised to see One Last Wish on here because most people would just go right to the Rites of Spring or Embrace representation.
Mm-hmm.
One Last Wish is an excellent fucking band, though. This is an excellent record. Fun fact, this is Elliot from Michael Sarah Palin's favorite emo band.
that's cool.
Did y'all listen to the interview with Guy on Washed Up Emo?
I have not yet.
It's honestly
rest assured,
it's an amazing interview, and they hardly talk about this band at all, which I thought was kind of surprising.
rest assured my stomach churns in jealousy whenever I think about the fact that Tom Mullen got Guy Picciotto.
Yeah, this is the One Last Wish when that finally came out was just like a great missing link in that, in Guy's work, and it was like that collection of the One Last Wish songs is spectacular.
Once again, just kind of acknowledging the jangle pop influence on emo, which I think either goes unnoticed or is attributed entirely to the Smiths, which is unfair. 80, Cast of It, between Berwyn and Bryn Mawr. Cast of It fucking
awesome.
rule.
Yeah, so good. I didn't really ever think of them as emo. I thought it was more like kind of post-rocky, but
They're emo, for sure, I think.
I don't know, maybe it's the lack of vocals for me that like makes me think like more like post-math rock sort of thing, but thinking about it, like their instrumentals are very emo. I just think it's the lack of a lot of the vocals.
Also, like 2008 is like right before Snowing and Algernon took off, so it's kind of like, I mean, not that this was like formative for like a lot of bands, but like it definitely is ahead of its time sound wise.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and credit to both David Anthony and this podcast for making me revisit the record that they did after this, which I think might even be better.
Echo in the Light, right?
Yep. But yeah, Cast of It, great fucking band. Boilermaker, Slow Down, number 79. We're heading into out of the bottom 20 into the real meat of the list. This section shuts out Pinback as like emo, which I don't think I agree with.
That's not okay.
Yeah, and also the Pinback they weren't contemporary with Drive Like Jehu and Honeywell and Boilermaker. That was an interesting choice.
But Boilermaker are very good. Am I crazy for always hearing like a grunge influence in their sound?
No, I think it's definitely in there. Then Boilermaker was another one that I was like very surprised to see on the list and very happy to see on the list.
Yeah,
they're another great San Diego band that doesn't get the credit they're due.
Absolutely. And they always reminded me of like San Diego's answer to like later Quicksand. Actually, I can kind of hear it in like the vocals and the way the riffs are constructed.
Didn't we argue?
78.
Or didn't you and Lauren argue about Boilermaker on the episode 0?
I think Lauren was arguing that he didn't hear the grunge. I've been harping on the grunge influence in Boilermaker for fucking years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was more of like a 3 Mile Pilot sort of influence, but it's definitely, it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. No, you're totally right. I mean, yeah. Fucking speaking of
Pinback.
Yeah. Speaking of Pinback. Yeah. Isn't that? What other bands has that guy been in?
Well, the Black Heart Procession. They basically split into Black Heart Procession and Pinback.
Okay, cool. All right, 78, Me Without You, Wolf Am I, and Shadow. This is an A to B life.
So my thought is like, as long as me Without You is on here, it's fine, because I don't think you could really pick one song that's gonna like be the perfect fit for this list, because there's so fucking many, and people always have their own favorites.
Yeah, but Me Without You is a great fucking band. And shout out to Nina for acknowledging how fucking self-loathing Aaron Wise is. Always great time listening to his lyrics. 77, Heroin, Meaningless. This is not the Heroin song I would have picked. I would have picked Leave, which is my favorite.
Oh yeah,
'cause
totally.
I think that riff is just a fucking untouchable. Not just emo, but like the entirety of hardcore oriented heavy music would not be the same without Heroin. One of the reasons I love this band so much is because they were one of the first true screamo or emo shirts that I ever got. And people always ask me, why do you have a shirt that just says fucking Heroin on it, you weirdo? Yeah, fucking fantastic band. Like they're like one of my 5 desert island emo bands for sure, unquestionably.
Do you think they should be higher on the list?
Given what else is on the list and kind of like the goals they were going for, I don't know.
Yeah.
And they are like absolutely. I feel like that they might have even just been put on this list like for their influence more than anything else.
Yeah.
Which is fair. But let me tell you something. Like if you're a fan of like songs that sound like they're barely being held together, like they could just fall apart at any fucking moment, but somehow they managed to get themselves to the end through sheer force of will and emotion, Heroin's up your alley. 76, Penfold, I'll Take You Everywhere. Penfold's resuscitation and popularity is both one of the most baffling and the most heartwarming things about emo kids discovering 90s emo bands. But Penfold fucking rules, dude.
Yeah.
This is
rules.
This is the song too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Penfold's just a really fucking good band. I don't know what else to say.
Count Your Lucky Stars did this reissue, right?
Did they really?
I don't know.
I believe so.
Yeah, they did. I didn't know that.
So, shout out to Keith for fucking putting his money where his mouth is and actually introducing kids to the stuff that, I talked about the Mineral influence on Empire, but Penfold is just as big of an influence.
Yeah.
Maybe if only because Penfold sounds a lot like Mineral, but, they had their own really charismatic take on it.
I think especially for this song, the intro, the guitar intro is like super reminiscent of like a Empire song, especially. So it definitely makes sense to me that they'd be an influence.
Watch their final show on YouTube. It's great.
Yes, absolutely. 75, La Dispute, The Last Lost Continent. If you are going to put La Dispute on this list, I think it should be illegal to not put King Park.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is a weird choice from even that album.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love La Dispute. I never really thought of them as like an emo band. I thought they were more like a kind of post-hardcore sort of thing. I didn't really know how to peg them genre-wise. I couldn't really ever pick a song by La Dispute. I think that they're full record. Like I think you have to listen front to back on a record for them to really like get the full experience.
They are screamo kids though. Like they were in Line of the North.
Yeah. Okay. Fair play. I personally love Rooms of the House by La Dispute. I know that might be like a weird take, but like that's one of my favorite front to back like records in general, and it's my favorite from La Dispute.
I think Rooms of the House is the popular take.
Is it?
I think my Wildlife take is actually the less popular one. I mean, I'm glad they're on this list. It just should have been King Park, because that's the song that like makes me feel like actually nervous every time it gets to the end, just because of the master way that they build up the tension.
Yeah, King Park is definitely the one that everybody, even if they don't know the name, they'll be like, "Oh, it's the one song," and it's their song. I feel like that would have been the one for this list.
That's the Tumblr anthem. That's the
Tumblr anthem.
I saw La Dispute and Tushi Amori at the show the other day.
They've got some really good riffs, and they definitely have a lot of lyrics.
Yeah.
I guess what I mean by King Park being the Tumblr song is that's the song you see the lyrics in Brainflower font over desaturated pictures of forests.
100%. 100%.
74 Oso Oso Reindeer Games. Of course, this is the Oso Oso song.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just talk about this first sentence. For his second record, 2017's the Unohan mixtape, Jade Lilytree of Oso Oso wrote the best Weezer song I've heard since 1996.
It's a little bit of a
I'd say
disservice.
why is Weezer?
But it doesn't even sound like Weezer. It sounds
I
like
know.
Death Cab. I
I don't even know. I think that what I like about Oso Oso is it's just different from what a lot of people are doing in the genre nowadays. I think Jade is probably the best songwriter in the scene right now by a lot. He manages to make these songs that all sound different, but you know from the first couple chords that it's an Oso Oso song. Like he has this style pegged, but it's not like some bands in the scene where it just sounds like the same thing rehashed over and over again. And his vocal delivery is so cool and so interesting. He has this really kind of chilled out voice, you know, a little bit of range on him. He usually sticks within the same kind of like keys, I feel like, but really unique voice and just a really unique style, but such a distinct style that I think is really cool.
One influence that I think is worth pointing out is that similar to the way that Jim mixed his vocals on Clarity, there's a lot of moments in Oso Oso's discography where Jade arranges the production and vocal melodies so that he is like singing with himself in this really like impactful, layered way.
Yeah, his harmonies are fantastic. I think that's another thing that I like that I failed to mention, but his use of harmony is very interesting, and it's something like that not a lot of bands do.
I think it's really hard to write harmonies with yourself when you're like the only person writing the song.
Trust me, yeah, I definitely feel that.
Yeah, but shout out to Jade for being one of like the auteurs of this current wave of emo.
He was great.
73, page 99, In Love with an Apparition. Not would have not been my page 99 pick, but
Really? What would your pick have been? I think that this is. I thought this was a good pick.
Yeah.
I would have picked either My Application to Heaven or Humans with Forked Tongues.
Okay.
Page 99 is my favorite screamo band though, so yeah, I can't hate on this pick though, especially because you know the fucking Kurt Cobain sample that opens it. Hell yeah, and the fucking hand claps. I can't think of another heavy band that. No, actually, that's not true. Every Time I Die in a Bolorama, that using hand claps in like a heavy song is one of my fucking favorite things. Page 99 are goddamn perfect, and I feel really blessed to be Facebook friends with Blake, who is just constantly posting the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life.
There's that screamo to stand-up comedy pipeline.
Oh yeah, except Blake is much funnier than Jason from Orchid. Let's just be honest. 72, Modern Baseball, Your Graduation. This is the Modern Baseball song. This is the correct song to put here, I think.
Yep. Surprised it's this low on or high on the list. High as in close to 100.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like it should be lower. I wouldn't put it lower. They didn't really. Modern Baseball never really did it for me, but they're like the pipeline band into the genre right now. Like go to a show.
Yep.
Like just go to a show and be like, oh, like what are you doing here? How'd you get into this shit? Oh, well, I heard Modern Baseball on fucking TikTok or whatever the kids do nowadays. And that's it.
TikTok is an abomination. It might be the worst. Might be the worst application of social media since the advent of Friendster. But yeah, credit to Modern Baseball for causing me to see more emo shirts than I would have expected at pop punk shows in 2013, 2014.
Yeah. And a lot of people like, you know, want to shit on them sometimes for, you know, for their like kind of pop sort of sound, but they were doing like genuine emo shit. Like their split with Marietta was fucking awesome. All those songs were great.
I've said this before, and I'm sure I will say it again, but to me, Modern Baseball, whether they know it or not, because I think actually the influence that they have said they take more from is, along with the weaker bands like early Say Anything. But modern baseball is like the update on the God's Reflex formula. I really hope people who listen to your graduation or Fine Gray go back and listen to How I Learned to Unwind by God's Reflex and just kind of see where that style came from.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, they're kind of, now that I think about it, like inadvertently how I got into the scene, because we were like in a band that was kind of, it was acousticy kind of like Front Bottoms ripoff kind of shit. And this is back in like 2014, I think. And Liam, when I say we, I mean Liam and I, the bass player for Closure. And someone's like, yeah, you guys sound like modern baseball. We're like, okay, never heard of it. So we go to check it out on Spotify. And the day we happened to check it out was the day that they uploaded their Marietta split. So we clicked play, and the first song is like, I think, yeah, Utah by Marietta. And we were like, holy fuck, this modern baseball band is sick. And like, we only listened to the Marietta side, and then we realized like, oh, that's Marietta. And then that was like, oh shit, like what else is like this? And then I asked my friend who I knew was kind of into the twinkly emo stuff, and he gave me like a bunch of bands. So like in a non-direct way, like modern baseball is responsible for my part in the scene, which is kind of funny.
I hate to be the one to break this bad news to you, Collins, but I think that person was like insulting you.
What, you sound like modern baseball?
Yeah.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a band in 2014 that didn't sound like modern baseball in the DIY scene. It is like when we used to tour, you would seriously, every single band would cover some sort of modern baseball song, like without fail. Like I remember there was one show we played with this band called Elephant Jake. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to Elephant Jake.
I've seen that name.
I remember them, yeah.
Yeah, Elephant Jake is cool. Like Sal is cool. Like they're a cool band. But I remember they were like, fuck, we were going to cover a modern baseball song, because we covered a modern baseball song. Like it was like one of those things that like everybody sounded like modern baseball. It was just, there's something about the sound that it's just interesting. I never really got super into it myself, but I definitely see the appeal.
71, Seisha, Venus and Bacchus. This is the Seisha song, right? This is the one?
That's what I've always observed.
Yeah, it seems to be the one. And I think that Seisha's another one that I think their influence is more important than I'm not a huge Seisha fan, but I think they were definitely a big influence on screamo or hardcore, that sort of hardcore going forward. And,
is it the vocals?
Yeah, you know what? The vocals are fine. I don't know what it is about it like that doesn't click with me as much as like you and I, for example. Like I think it just it seems a little too self-aware, maybe.
Okay. I think Seisha, the reason Seisha is so influential is for whatever reason they were always the first name on people's lips when they were like, oh, please stop calling from first to last screamo, listen to real screamo, like Seisha. And the result of this is when you listen to the song on YouTube and scroll down to the comments, there's a whole bunch of people saying like, this doesn't sound like screamo at all. What is up with these vocals? Why is the production so bad?
I think it's impressive still that there are bands that are coming out still today that sound like Seisha. Like it just I think that's right in saying that their influence is really far reaching. I mean, like I hear Seisha and then I think like, oh, that sounds like Wrist Meet Razor sort of, or like, like there are bands that are still coming out today that I feel like are like hugely influenced by Seisha, which is really cool.
Wrist Meet Razor is a weird thing to draw that influence from, because their earlier stuff sounds like Usurp Synapse and now they sound like Zayo.
Yeah, they now recently not as much, but for me it's the use of the octave chords, the general like kind of vocals.
They had the octave attack down.
Yeah. And I love octave chords. I love octave.
Same.
I'm a huge fan.
Bottom line on Seisha, I know they are the basic bitch screamo band, but they'll always have a special place in my heart, and I will always treasure my Seisha shirt, which is a little boy and a little girl kissing in a grassy field. I really like that aesthetic. 70, Elliot, Drive On to Me. This is the best Elliot record. Am I alone in thinking that?
I mean, I think everything they did is great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I fucking love Elliot. I loved Falling Forward too, but
Falling Forward is one of my favorite bands of all time.
I've always liked this record a lot because I think it's like the concise, energetic version of Cross My Heart or Pop Unknown, or like all the bands that were bringing in more experimental or art rock influences into emo. I think Elliot really took those and distilled it into like a more hardcore derived package. And I really, really fucking love this record. Did this one also come out on Revelation, or was this on a different label?
It was Revelation.
Yeah. Word. Yeah, excellent fucking album.
It's another band that like the songwriting is just like intuitive. It just they make it seem so easy to write the songs. Like and the drummer and the soundscapes and the way everything fits together is just spectacular.
I'm glad people are on Louisville now. I'm glad that.
Thanks,
Louisville. Like I feel like there's always been that little bit of Louisville had like an important scene. Slint came out of there. Their contributions to like 90s hardcore and emo are, unfathomable. Falling Forward, fucking Guilt, Endpoint, just really fucking important scene. Really showing out for, the subset of kids who always showed up to shows in flannel because they just got off their job, like working construction. 69, Foxing, Rory. This is the Foxing song.
Yeah, this is definitely the song.
Yep.
I've still never heard Foxing.
Don't worry about it.
If you listen to this song, you've heard Foxing.
Okay.
Unless you listen to their most recent record, in which case, like...
You've heard Muse.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say other than, like, typical, like, trumpet song.
Yeah.
I think this is an important song for this era. I don't think it needs to be higher than Seisha, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not. And I might also have maybe picked Bit by a Dead Bee instead.
It's a little bit of a deeper cut, but yeah, it's good.
I think
that sounds a little harder,
Yeah, it's cool when you get into the genre. I think Foxing is a very entry-level emo band that's cool to listen to for the first couple, maybe months or whatever you're into the genre, and then I feel like you kind of move on into different stuff.
I wonder how many listeners don't realize that, like, the narrator of the song is not actually Connor Murphy. Like, that the main character of Rory is not a good person. 68, Gray Matter, Burn No Bridges. Kyle, what do you mean that you never saw Gray Matter as emo?
I've never heard them referred to as emo. I've only seen them as like punk/hardcore stuff.
No, like them and like Beefeater were always like the traditional deep cuts to mention after you brought up like Rites of Spring and Embrace, like for Revolution Summer bands. Revolution Summer, Jesus.
But does Revolution Summer like strictly imply emo?
Yes.
I mean, it was still really hard. I mean, it was still really like more of a hardcore scene. It wasn't, I think that Gray Matter has some of the elements that made Rites of Spring and Embrace emotional hardcore, but they're still definitely more of a hardcore band.
Yeah, I do think like their influence is like inextricable from the DNA of emo. Like,
oh yeah, of course, and that's why I thought it was so important that the Ian McKay quote should have, the full.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've completely turned around on my assessment of your assessment. I agree with you fully. 67, Sarge, Beguiling. This might be the one band on this list that I hadn't actually heard of.
Same. Like I had to Google.
Yeah, this was a really surprising pick. And also the right song, in my opinion, to choose. It's great. I love it, and it's like the poppy Midwest emo, and it's it has nods to Braid and like their relationship. So it's like it's actually a very emotional song, as well as like just this great emo pop song.
Word. Yeah. No, I ended up really fucking loving the song. So again, fucking Nina is coming out of this list with like some of the best cred.
Just hitting it out of the park.
Her emo credit rating is quickly heading towards 800. 66, Knapsack Courage was confused. Not my knapsack pick.
Not mine either.
Yeah, I would have picked Skip the Details.
Sunday Side of the Street would be mine, but
yeah. But I guess that's, every time I say this isn't the song I would have picked, I realize that I'm basically just splitting hairs of a hair of a hair of a hair. I really should just be happy that fucking Knapsack and Page 99 are in a list of the 100 greatest emo songs of all time on Vulture.com.
Is it kind of shocking that Blair's other band is higher than this band?
Yes.
I thought that was shocking.
Yeah, that was shocking.
Yeah.
I feel like Knapsack and Jealous Sound should have switched places on the rankings.
Had they formed a few years later, Knapsack would have been Jimmy Eat World. Didn't Jimmy Eat World form around the same time, if not slightly before Knapsack?
I think Knapsack might have been before.
It says that they were formed in '93 on Wikipedia, from what I just looked up. So,
and I also don't know if I agree with that, just because Blair's voice is much like readier than Jim's, not in an unpleasant way, but definitely in like a less pop accessible way. 65, Fuel, Q to You. Sarah Kirsch is in my top 5 hardcore songwriters of all time. I think she was an actual musical genius, and I'm very sad that she's not contributing to the scene anymore. Rest in peace. But Fuel, maybe next to Navio Forge, is her crowning achievement, in my opinion.
I think Navio Forge should have been on the list, but I'm really happy that Fuel made it on here. Yeah, Sarah's bands. There wasn't a bad band that Sarah was involved in, and I was lucky enough to see multiple Sarah bands, and they were just every single one of them spectacular.
I never got that chance, but even on record, you can hear like everything boiling over with intensity, and she has that like Swizz blue tip derived of playing, where the melodic lines are just played with such intensity that they like transcend even the aggressive limitations of hardcore into something like overwhelmingly passionate, and her death is a huge loss. 64, Glockamora, Irrevocable, motherfucker. Irrevocable, right?
Irrevocable.
I've heard it both ways, to be honest.
Yeah, I've actually heard both. So
yeah, well, last time we talked about this record, Kyle said Irrevocable, and I was like, I really always thought it was Irrevocable, but
I like the former for some reason. I think it just sounds cooler, but that's just me.
It has a harder time coming off my tongue.
Irrevocable. It sounds sick. I don't know.
Irrevocable just sounds like.
This is the song.
Anyway, that's our spiel on Glockamora. Should this have been higher? I almost feel like this should have been higher.
I don't know. Yeah, it could have been. Just because I think it's like one of the best guitar displays of Twinkle ever.
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to show somebody, if someone's like, what is twinkly guitar, you would show them this, or like Algernon, or, I mean, obviously American Football would be a good one, but I think like this is peak Revival.
Yeah, just kind of those breathless, interlocking twinkle guitar runs. Just amazing band. And You know what? I know Zach didn't want to come talk about this on the pod because he's a little embarrassed of his past work. But if anything has shown that he shouldn't be embarrassed of this record, it's the fact that they are constantly name checked as one of the best bands of this era, and this is inarguably a classic record. 63, Tiger's Jaw, I Saw Water. Hell yeah. There's definitely some like hair splitting as to whether or not Tiger's Jaw is emo. But I feel like this era of them in particular is like inseparable from the scene.
Yeah, I feel like they have like a place on this list for sure.
I think everyone loves this band. Like, I think they might be like the most name-checked emo band on Axe to Grind, or like contemporary emo name-checked band on Axe to Grind, and they ride for Tiger's Jaw. I don't know, maybe a little high on the list though.
Yeah, I think it's another one of those bands that is kind of essential for the beginner to check out. I feel like you know, oh, I really like pop punk, but I heard emo is cool. What should I listen to? And Tiger's Jaw is one of those bands that comes up very, very frequently.
Good song.
They're the quintessential core cred pop punk band, like of the last 10 years probably.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the perfect spot on this list, like kind of right under the top 50, because you know, after this I feel like Tiger's Jaw became a really consistent band but never a fantastic band. I also am not sure if I would pick I Saw Water, and this is actually a valid hair split because Plane vs. Tank vs. Submarine and Never Saw It Coming both are, I think, more anthemic and to get a bigger response.
Which one's the Lie to Me song?
Oh, that's Plane.
Plane vs. Tank vs. Submarine. Never Saw It Coming was the first Tiger's Jaw song that I ever heard, so like I think of it as like the song, but I thought they were like, when I first listened to it in like 2011 or something, I thought they were like an acoustic band just because I'd only heard this song. I think that I Saw Water is probably like, I think that's the right one for me.
Okay. I felt just like Brian Jones, just that one line stuck in my head like twice a week. So I can't complain much about it. 62, Something Corporate, Constantine. This is not the correct Something Corporate song. I feel like it might be here if only because of the Jimmy Eat World reference. But if you see Jordan is the best Something Corporate song, right?
Do you think that this list would have been better just without Something Corporate? Because that's how I feel.
I feel like it'd be hard. I think that you have to at least mention Andrew McMahon in a list of top 100 emo songs. I don't know.
No, you don't.
I don't know.
You don't.
I just think Andrew McMahon is a fantastic songwriter.
Well, it's that one Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness song where he's like been all around the world in a punk rock band. I mean, I feel like you might be overselling yourself a little bit there, Andrew.
Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, I will say, kind of loses me at certain points, but I don't know.
But you're a big Jack's Mannequin, yeah.
Huge Jack's Mannequin fan, so I that's why I'm obviously biased, but I'm a huge Jack's Mannequin fan.
I think this song is just like, it's not bad, but it is like the epitome of weepy bullshit that I wish emo never got associated with. And if you wear a Something Corporate t-shirt, I automatically assume that you have like Billy Joel's greatest hits on vinyl, CD, and cassette. We got to move on because I know Seth's got a lot to say. 61, Weezer, Tired of Sex.
Like, I just want music writers to stop putting Weezer on emo lists. That's like the main thing about this. Is it's at best revisionist history to say that Weezer's an emo band or had any like influence on emo, or and like it just doesn't. They were a corporate rock band, and that's fine, and they were great. And I mean, I love Pinkerton, but it was not then, nor is it now emo. I don't understand why music writers just want to make it a thing so badly. They're on every emo list, and they were just a rock band, like in a much bigger way than like, you know, Jimmy Eat World, who didn't want to be called emo and were like, we're just a rock band. But they, like, Weezer literally wasn't. It didn't have any connection. And Ian Cohen even says that, like, they weren't. And then he goes on, like, why would, if you're gonna say that they weren't, why would you go on and make a case that they were somehow?
They're Cheap Trick and Pixies, like, and Heavy Tones all mixed together for 1994 power pop, and it's completely okay to not put that in the emo world. I feel like the only reason they ever got associated with emo is because of Pinkerton's, like, confessional lyrics.
Lots of other stuff has confessional lyrics. Like, you don't need to like okay, let's call Jeff Buckley's Grace like an essential emo record. Yeah, exactly.
It makes just as much sense.
Right.
Okay, I'm actually going to contradict what I said earlier. I feel like we actually should do this list in two parts. I think we should hit 50 and
I was kind of
then come back, because it's now like
we're over 2 hours in.
Everyone was right. This was absolutely always going to be a 5-hour episode.
It's 100 songs. That's a lot to talk about.
So with our Weezer bashing out of the way, number 60, I Hate Myself, To a Husband at War. This isn't the I Hate Myself song. I feel like Trapped in a Flood with the Captain of the Cheerleading Team is the I Hate Myself song. I do think it's impossible to talk about emo and screamo without talking about I Hate Myself. I do enjoy that David Anthony here acknowledges that I Hate Myself marketed themselves, maybe not marketed themselves, but tried to convince people that I Hate Myself was a joke band, because they were every cliche of emo and screamo at the time, like ratcheted up to 11 in a good way. Don't get me wrong.
I Hate Myself. This song is another one that pops up that is like a music writer favorite to put on lists. The influence of I Hate Myself, I don't feel was as wide reaching and as big as people like to write about now. They weren't as big of a deal as it people would have you believe.
Yeah.
with these things.
But they are really good.
They're great. That album's amazing. I feel like their influence is a little
overblown
because
they were not as big as people think they were.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in the Florida scene, like people will probably be willing to acknowledge that like Hot Water Music was much bigger than they were, but I don't think people understand that, like, in the context of the Florida scene, I Hate Myself was literally like a pimple on Hot Water Music's ass. Like, but all the love and appreciation towards I Hate Myself, and shout out to Die Hoffnung, which was also a really, really good band, and I think kind of carved out a more serious niche of I Hate Myself's music.
What bands are people saying are influenced by I Hate Myself?
That's another thing. Is they never. I don't feel like anybody ever like connects the dots that far. They just say that they're influential and then move on, and that's that's always one of the things I'm like, people listen to them and they were good, but it wasn't. They weren't like a huge name at the time. They were just another band, and they were good, but that was it.
I think it's fitting that that statement was accompanied by a siren, because the emo police is definitely descending upon the century. All right, do you want to move on to number 59, Say Anything, Alive with the Glory of Love?
Would love to.
So Say Anything literally has a shirt that says you don't have to be Jewish to like Say Anything, but I have always been of the opinion that if you are Jewish, Say Anything just kind of makes a little bit more sense, but enough so that something like really clicks. There's like all sorts of like his tortured relationship with his own sexuality and just kind of like ironic detachment mixed with self-loathing, mixed with earnestness. It just kind of like really speaks to cultural Jewishness, especially of like the late 90s, early 2000s flavor. And it's something you can also see represented in like Seth Cohen of the OC. If Seth Cohen started an emo band, I don't think it would sound too dissimilar from anything. And yet, despite all of that, and despite the fact that the song is about the Holocaust, I don't think this is the representative Say Anything song, and I think Admit It would be a much, much better pick here.
I love Say Anything. Their favorite record of mine is definitely the self-titled. I don't know like if that's like a weird take, but the self-titled for me just does it. I can't really speak to anything that you really said. I don't have any experience with that, but I think Alive with the Glory Love is a pretty solid representation of Say Anything.
Yeah, but it's aside from Every Man Has a Molly, this is like the most straightforward rock song on it as a real boy, and every other song kind of has like this this expansive, more progressive element to it that I think is a little bit less represented here. But yeah, this is definitely the emo night track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll take your wager of Admit It, and I'll ante up with Whoa for the best representative.
Oh, Whoa is a fantastic fucking song. Yeah. Okay. I think I would be able to get down with that pick. I think Max Bemis it gets misconstrued as a lyricist a lot. There's a big movement on like emo Facebook right now of just like Say Anything is bad, and
I don't think that's fair at all.
They have bad albums and bad tracks, but
they definitely do. But like everything up to including Is a Real Boy is like a high watermark of this genre, and a lot of the lyrical conceits are a bit more sophisticated than people give them credit for. Like Every Man Has a Molly, I think probably could be construed as like a classic, like, oh, bitch done me wrong, like misogynistic emo pop track. But I think it's actually more about like the weird relationship between emotional intimacy and marketing that like as part of your band's image. And it's something that is kind of elaborated further on in like Little Girls, which Max Bemis has said is about like emo frontmen and how predatory they are. But yeah, it's a really, really fucking smart record all around, and a really good band. I'm a huge fan.
Same.
the Jazz June.
The Scars to Prove It. I don't listen to the Jazz June, and that's absolutely a mistake.
This is a good record.
Yeah, I listened to this record after this list came out, and I was like, I have been missing out on the Jazz June for sure.
They were a really really good live band, and took the Midwest kind of like mathy pop emo stuff in a really good direction. The emo revival sort of sound, a direct descendant of what the Jazz June was doing. I thought that it was a good addition to the list.
I think this is a tad bit too high.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I would have. Jazz June shouldn't be above Knapsack at all.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Have you listened to the newer album?
It doesn't have the same. It doesn't have the same like urgency as the older Jazz June albums. I feel like it's kind of sluggish.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't feel passionate, which
Yep.
probably happens to boys at that age.
57, Snowing, Sam Rudick. This is too low. Way too low. Like, I feel like Snowing should be much closer in proximity to Algernon on this list. Both because their popularity and influence is much closer to that band, and because they were just so fucking good. Honestly, like, picking a Snowing song is, a fool's errand. So I can't really shit on this pick.
Although Pump Fake is Pump Fake is like the never meant for this band. I'm just hung up on the fact that it's so low at 57. Like, not even top 50. That it feels almost disrespectful to me. Yeah. I don't want to like overblow this band, but like, yeah, I think this is like a top 20.
Yeah, big time. I have always appreciated Snowing for being a little bit messier and more raw than even like this already messy and raw era of the emo revival. And the fact that John's vocals are such like an acquired taste, I think only like adds to their intensity. Mm-hmm. Hey Seth, do you have any relation to Snowing? Do you have any?
I like Snowing, and I think as far as like the emo revival, quote unquote, era, they're as important as Algernon or Glacamora. So I think that they could have been a little higher up on the list.
Yeah. What about you, Collins?
Snowing was one of the first bands that I listened to of the genre. When my buddy, when I asked him about what is emo, what is twinkly emo, this is one of the first bands he sent me. So I definitely appreciate them for that. I will say, like, it never really clicked with me super hard. Like, some of their songs did important things and like clicked with me, but other than that, this isn't a band I'll sit down and listen to a lot. But obviously, like, it's a band that if I hear, I'll jam it. But I do think it should have been higher on the list just because of its influence on the genre as a whole. And I don't think we can get through this band without talking about that weird ass fucking reunion show.
None of that was Snowing's fault. I feel like we should come down. A lot of people were like mad at them, but I feel like if you're in a situation where you're jumping around while listening to a band might cause the floor to cave in and the band asks you to stop, you are the assholes for not doing that.
I think that it's so easy to be like, well, I'm just having fun, and that, first of all, the promoters fucked up because they shouldn't have booked a band like Snowing in a venue like that. Secondly, like, be respectful of the venue and be respectful of the band. The band doesn't owe you anything. The band didn't write these songs for you. Like, it's their thing. So if they ask you to, chill out and respect the other people in the venue, I think you need to do that. I don't think if you're in a band, you can really get how frustrating some of that stuff can be. And from what I've seen on the video and what I've heard, it does seem like people were bumping into the bass and unplugging it. And I will say, like, as a musician, the most frustrating thing of like ever that I've ever experienced on stage myself is like technical difficulties. And I can't say that if somebody kept bumping into my shit and unplugging it, I wouldn't freak out.
Yeah, no hate towards Snowing on that situation at all. I think
I felt so bad. I understood like when it happened. I was like, man, that just was really unfortunate.
And I do think it speaks a little bit to like a lot of entitlement that DIY kids have now, that like the band is just supposed to like deliver on everything with no give and take from the crowd whatsoever. And it kind of goes against like the intimate relationship that you're supposed to have.
I completely agree.
As DIY.
I mean, there's a lot of respect that needs to be, it goes both ways. Like I said, you're not owed any music by anybody at any time. You know, it's their music to kind of, I don't know, showcase, and you gotta respect that.
Yeah. All right, we're coming up on like the last 5 tracks of this session. 56, The Anniversary, the D in Detroit. Fucking love The Anniversary. Every time I hear them, though, like, I think, oh shit, this is where Adventures got like a whole shit ton of their ideas. You know, just that kind of like dreamy atmosphere, yet really propulsive and energetic sense of dynamics, and like the way the vocal harmonies come together all feels very Adventures-esque. Does anyone here like Your Majesty more than this record?
As far as I'm concerned, All Things Ordinary is their only song. About it. The Anniversary has one song, and it's All Things Ordinary, and that's all I know.
Damn, so you don't even like Perfectly? I think
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think the climax of Perfectly is so perfect.
Never heard of it.
Kyle, you love The Anniversary, right?
I'm a little lukewarm on The Anniversary. I do think this is their I can't explain it. It's just not my shit. I always thought this is through and through their hit song, right?
Yeah. This is a track. I can't believe I'm more emotionally mature than anyone else here. All right, I guess I'll move on because I can't abide Anniversary hate.
And there's no hate.
It's not
There's
hate. Their one song is really good.
I'm just feeling really attacked right now, and I'm in a vulnerable place. 55, Ignition, Anger Means. Ignition are a great fucking band, and I am, again, pleasantly surprised at both their inclusion in this list and how high they are. Because kind of similar to, like, Grey Matter, I feel like they're one of those and also bands.
Yeah, they're definitely a revolution. Summer also ran. But the stuff they did was really, really good, and just as good as Embrace. Or
can I just say, like, poor Alec Mackay always getting fucked over by like either his proximity to like his brother's projects that went on to gain much greater notoriety, or like the Faith being on the split with Void and being completely overshadowed.
Yeah, that was a rough one for poor Alec. The Faith Void split. They couldn't have seen that coming.
Yeah. Is the Faith Void split like the foundational text for all split records in hardcore? Was there anything like that before it?
Yeah, there was, but it is one of the most important, for sure. Especially because how much better the Void side is.
Oh shit! Yeah, I guess it's the foundational text for like one band winning the split, probably.
Right.
But yeah, Ignition, fucking great band. Alec was also in the band 3, right?
Yeah.
3 is really fucking good. If you've watched that documentary Salad Days, 3 is like the band that has like the last song that plays right before the credits roll, and it's a really fucking good song. And they're also really hard to find on Spotify, but they're there. You just got to type in the number 3 and scroll through all the artists. 54, Hope for Us by The Jealous Sound. Yeah, this is asinine to have over knapsack. This is like putting fucking Hey Mercedes over Braid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
the Firebird suite over. Yeah, it's just it doesn't. This is like putting the Frog Queen. It's putting the Frog Queen over Sunny Day Real Estate. Just insulting. Is there something to be said for this being like an attempt to break through into the mainstream? Kind of maybe like the older Miss West dudes seeing like the ascendance of Jimmy Eat World, and then like other bands influenced by them and being like,
well, shit, we could have done this, and then taking a crack at it.
Is there any proof of this, or just how fucking poppy and huge the choruses are?
Yeah, no, I don't think this was. It was
Yeah.
like deliberate. It's not a sellout by any
No.
means.
Yeah, I think it was a logical progression in Blair's songwriting, but it definitely was leaning more towards mainstream success than Knapsack was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that was also partly because like the goalposts had been moved at that point, you know? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
when Knapsack was around, there were a ton of weird bands getting, you know, major label deals and stuff. So they could have been successful at a certain point. But then by the time it got to Jealous Sound, it wasn't, you know, the musical landscape had changed. And
Yeah, big time. 53 Rainer Maria Tinfoil. Excellent fucking opener. I fucking love Rainer Maria. I don't think they've ever done anything less than very good. But this is probably my favorite Rainer Maria song. And is the first one of theirs that I heard. So
really good
My
choice
bias.
for a Rainer Maria song.
But there's two of them.
But I would have axed the other one and put this one higher.
Really?
If I'm being honest. Yeah.
I feel like these are
you
both
Can't
pretty logical.
can't that opening, goddammit. Like
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's such like a iconic like opening to a track. Like it's amazing, and like it just gets stuck in your head. Like once you hear it, you're gonna think about it every once in a while.
you know, whether it's Rainer Maria or Alkaline Trio coming out of the gate with a goddammit is just like it's such a fucking mission statement, you know? Like 'cause that's one of those really aggressive like tone setting words, I think. Like a statement of purpose. But the way they sing it is so like sweet and reserved. So you have that like give like tension going on as well. I think Rainer Maria is a fantastic band. Anyone else have anything to say about Rainer Maria? Because we're on the last two tracks of this episode.
I'm good.
52, Lifetime, The Gym is Neutral Territory. Again, I think it's valid to take issue with the song choice here. Because Rodeo Clown and Iron is for Suckers, I think, are both far more definitive Lifetime tracks. And you also could have picked literally anything from Jersey's Best Dancers.
Yeah.
If it was going to come off of this album, Rodeo Clown for sure.
Yeah. Which I think Rodeo Clown, just on the basis of it having been covered by fucking Silverstein, you know, like that. I think if anything, that says that, oh yeah, Rodeo Clown is the fucking hit. And when you're constructing a list like this, I think you have to go with like the big song, you know, because otherwise it's just like it just feels asinine or self-serving, you know.
Do people consider like Hello Bastards like the most emo sounding of their records?
No, their earlier stuff is way more like
Yeah, background is like yeah.
Right.
Hello Bastards is where they, you know, got more pop punk and
Yeah.
got more like poppy in general.
Yeah, if you listen to like the 7 Inches compilation that Lifetime did, I think you hear more of like it's more logical to call them emotive hardcore.
Right.
And this record and Jersey's Best Dancers are both like squarely in melodic hardcore territory, like more directly descended from Dag Nasty and Gorilla Biscuits. This is such a weird song. It's so short. It's like in between a couple of the better songs on this album. Come on, man. Come on, David. You can do better. And also, they're below Saves the Day on this list, right?
Yeah, that's a crime.
We were just talking about fucking putting Hey Mercedes over Braid. Like, that's like putting Foo Fighters over Nirvana, right?
Can't Slow Down is a Lifetime album.
Yes. And don't get me wrong, I fucking love Early Saves the Day.
Oh yeah, cancel it down's amazing. I was talking about it with my friend last night. It's great.
Yeah. All right, we're on the last track of this session, but I can't really think of a better song to end this with than Mas Icon's I'm Back Sleeping or Fucking or Something. Although this would be in my top 10 if I were making this list. If I were making this list and I wasn't allowed to change any of the tracks itself, just the order, this would be in my top 10.
Yeah, it probably would be in mine too. Tony Joy's guitar playing is just it was such a huge influence on like punk and hardcore at the time, and like he's just like his guitar playing and songwriting is next level. Like he was on a whole other planet compared to contemporaries, and he still is. His riffs are unstoppable.
Yeah. His work in Universal Order of Armageddon, his work in Lava, even like the 10 seconds that he was in Born Against, like he just adds so fucking much to any band that he's in, because his riffs just scream charisma and scream innovation, and the emo twinkle is kind of unthinkable without Mas Icon, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like influence, going down the line for sure.
Yeah. And this is the Mas Icon track. Like when Jonathan Vance hits the scream, it feels like inhuman. He had one of the all-time fucking great voices for this genre. Just like eking catharsis out of every single orifice.
It was just so smart. Like hearing Mas Icon for the first time was a real kick.
And I've heard some people say that rather than Rites of Spring, they would consider Mas Icon to be like the true birthplace of emo proper. I'm not sure how I feel about that take, but I would be inclined to agree if anyone wanted to make an argument for or against.
I wouldn't make that argument, but
No.
people do like to argue about things.
Does anyone else think that, like, if it weren't for that alternative press write-up a while back, that a lot fewer people would be aware of Mas Icon?
What was the alt press write-up?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
They did, like, All Press did, like, a huge thing of, like, underrated hardcore bands that, like the concept was, like, stuff that, like, laid the groundwork for, like, emo in its later iterations. And Mas Icon had, like, a sizable piece in there. And I think, like, before that, I didn't really see, like, any mainstream outlets acknowledging Mas Icon. Like, Mas Icon were, like, the vanguard for music journalists kind of ignoring all the space in between, Rites of Spring and Sunny Day Real Estate. Like, despite Mas Icon being, like, the definitive band of that era, of that bridge point.
Like, I've always thought, like, Mas Icon has been, like, kind of, like, a well-documented band, but, like, I always, like, you know how Numero Group did, like, that whole repress thing of Indian Summer? I always thought that, like, Mas Icon was kind of one of those bands that, like deserved, like, the Criterion Collection type of treatment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like even with their higher standing now, they're still just severely underrated. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I always bemoan the lack of Mas Icon mentions. So
I feel like it's
glad to see him on this list.
I feel like it's just a little too filthy for some people.
I can see that, but they do have moments of, like, real sublime melodic beauty.
I think it definitely is a little too raw.
I don't know, just production wise, or like
Production wise,
everything
and the
about
songwriting too. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just maybe a little, like, unformed compared to the bands that they influenced. All right, I can see that. And with that, I think that's the logical stopping point here. We still have a top 50 to get through.
Sure.
This is a 3-hour recording session. What the fuck, guys? Thank you. Thank you for sitting through this with us and offering all your insight and input. I think this has actually been pretty good, and